Well, good afternoon, good evening. It is Monday, October 17th, and we are here for the Legislative Committee meeting. Doesn't look like we have any public comment, so we'll get into reports, the first one being budget and policy update.
All set?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we have to go right ahead.
Well, thank you, Ms. Grant, and members of the committee. Appreciate the opportunity. It's been a little bit since I have been able to provide you an update, but just wanted to share some information that I think is pertinent with where we're at. We got the large election coming up and got some great candidates on the ballot. I know that. But there are some things happening in Lansing that I think are worthy of this group's attention, and there's going to be additional conversations that go beyond that. So first and foremost, one of the things I've been doing is sharing this image of satisfaction with U.S. K-12 education. And you could ask the question of like, okay, what's this mean to us? What's it germane about? Well, I think when we follow what's happening throughout this election cycle, public education, perhaps more so than any other time, is front and center. And if you look at the gubernatorial platforms, you look at state legislative platforms, it is one of the top issues that is out there garnering people's attention. So what this shows you is going back to the year 2000, actually 1998, Gallup has the longest running poll trying to track perception of various issues that are out there, including K-12 education. And the good news is for schools in general, 80% of our parents are satisfied with the work that we're doing. So those who are closest to us, those who trust us with their children each and every day, drop them off at our doors, at an 80% clip, they're saying, I like what you're doing, I'm satisfied, which is good news for all of us. The point I'm trying to make, perhaps even more so, and why efforts to communicate the great work that schools are doing, for us to be proactive in that messaging, all of those sorts of things is so important, is because this green line looks at satisfaction of those who do not have kids in the system, or the general public.
What
And
do
it
they know?
may be easy to say, what do they know? However, we do know this. We do know if they are eligible to vote, they're able to cast a vote for school board members, for sinking fund or ballot initiatives, for bond issues, for state legislators, whether that be representatives or senators, governors and members of Congress, as well as the U.S. president, who all have some say in how schools operate. And so to me, I think part of the work that we do on the advocacy side, not only is that hands-on approach of helping our legislators and policymakers understand the implications for what it means to schools, but also trying to educate the general public on the great work that we're doing, the direction we're going, and why we're headed where we're headed. And hopefully over time, if that has a positive effect, we'll see that gap close between those who are our closest customers that we work with each and every day and the general public who doesn't have the opportunity to interact with us each and every day. So I just give you that as context. That 42% number, we need to get it above the Mendoza line if we're going to be successful in some of our longer term advocacy efforts.
And quick question, so that's education as a whole, charter, public, private, just everything
Yep.
in general?
Yep.
Higher education.
This is K-12.
This is K-12.
Yep.
Oh, sorry.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, but all those other entities you alluded to. I guess private would be excluded, but
Oh,
yep.
private is
Yep.
excluded.
So the green line excludes parents, or does it include both?
It is individuals who do not have kids in the system. They've either aged out or never had children that were in the public school system.
It's not an average of the two or anything
Nope.
like that. This is got.
All right.
Who did that?
Gallup. Yep. Wanted to make the committee aware there's a legislative package moving in Lansing. It's pretty far along the process. We're drawing attention to it. It would change the election calendar. And for the most part, it would eliminate the ability for us to host, as school districts, a spring election unless it was on a presidential primary year. So there's a lot of reasons why, as a school community, we've utilized that spring election. One, the ballots tend to be a little bit shorter, so it's easy to clearly communicate to the public what you're asking and what you're requesting. But two, when it comes to bond issues or other funding issues that rely on us to put that request on the summer tax rolls, it's timely because it allows us to work through that process. So we've been actively communicating with the governor's office as well as the state senate to help them understand the implications for not only schools but local units of government. And we're trying to maintain that spring election date. So it really isn't an issue for us whether that spring election date is March, April, or May. We're in May right now is the typical course, but it is important that we retain that spring election date. Another bill that was just signed into law, meeting rooms like this, along with offices, will be required to have one section of the Constitutional posted, that'd be Section 1 of Article 8, as well as Section 10 of the revised school code. So this is an initiative that we're really seeing all across the country. It's part of the quote-unquote parents' rights agenda, to where public bodies are expected to proactively showcase and share those areas of the Constitution.
It's done.
It's done. The governor has signed it. It takes effect January of 2023.
Oh, come on in. Join us.
I'll have to get my stuff.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah,
That's the
you're
captain
here.
down there.
Okay, it says
We-
Miss Williams. I was wondering if
Oh, does it
Rushed
say
it.
Miss Williams?
I wonder if I rushed and I didn't need to.
Oh,
Anyway,
We're just getting started.
it's gone.
recap that a little bit on what you said, this posting. What do we need to be posting now?
Yeah, so every school district, actually Department of Education, will have to have within their school board meeting room this text that's posted and viewable by the public, as well as within office facilities of school buildings throughout the district. So these are the two provisions that are required. As one superintendent pointed out to me, there's nothing that precludes you from putting the whole Constitution up there if you'd like. But these are the two provisions that are required to be posted.
Like the Bill of Rights?
You could do the whole, yeah.
But you have to obviously have these two.
Those
Section 1
two,
and
correct.
Section 10. Okay, interesting. And it's supposed to be by January 23.
Yeah, the interesting part, if you expand on Section 10 of the revised school code, it talks about the powers and duties of a school and what it has to do legally bound, right? So there certainly was some selection that went into deciding which sentences to include within these two texts, because it doesn't fully encompass what, Article 8 nor Section 10 of the revised school code fully cover. It only captures portions of those.
Tell me again, what's the other thing besides the Bill of Rights? What's the other?
The revised school code, Section 10 there.
So what it says here.
What it says there, yep.
Yeah. So not necessarily the Bill of Rights, though. He was just saying,
Right.
Catherine, if you could put the entire Constitution up there and still meet the ends of having these two required elements posted, but not necessarily the Bill of Rights, though. No, that was just
Correct, yep.
Have copies of the school code?
Yeah, the whole school code,
Just
yeah. Here you go. Would you like to hand that out?
800
Yep.
pages?
That's interesting. Well, who launched that bill? I'm just curious.
Representative Glenn out of Midland.
Now, I was told at one of the meetups this last week that the thing that's wrong with public schools is that we don't have the 10 Commandments posted in every school. So maybe we can get on that.
That's a quick fix. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. I said, no, I don't think that's going to happen.
All right. One of the things I wanted to bring to your attention, if you weren't aware, many years ago, and I actually was a recipient of a Michigan Merit Award back when that was within our state budget, and those scholarships were awarded. When we had the last downturn of the economy, that was one of the programs the state removed. It went back on that commitment to students. Very controversial at the time. We're now at a place to where, with a budget surplus, the governor as well as the legislature came to an agreement to put $250 million in the Michigan Achievement Scholarship Fund. So this scholarship fund will apply to students who are graduating in the class of 2023 and beyond. So this year's seniors. And the intent, because you can never tie the hands of future legislators, is to deposit an additional $50 million each and every year. So what does that look like? For our students who are public university bound students, it's up to $5,500 per year for up to 5 years. Independent university students, $4,000 a year for up to 5 years. Private trade schools included, $2,000 a year for up to 2 years, and community college students up to $2,750 for 3 years. There are some requirements in there that individual students apply for FAFSA, and some family expected contribution language of what that looks like. I think there's probably some rules and guidance that need to be further deliberated on family contribution and what that entails. But Michigan is back in a significant way into trying to provide direct aid to offset the cost of higher education for
And this
for
does
students.
not have a income requirement. It's just
Family contribution is the way they cast it.
that
Yep.
$25,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's not income, no, but when a family completes the FAFSA, Catherine, they'll have a expected family contribution that the FAFSA kicks back to them. So as long as that's 25,000 or less, then they qualify, but that's not an income thing directly,
And
no.
that's per year, their contribution for the year.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's a FAFSA predictor, Kathy, if you want to look at it, just like Google FAFSA predictor, and you can play around with different incomes to see what it
Yours
comes
is
out.
probably off the charts though, Ms. Lewis, so
I
aid for
I'm
you.
gonna just marry somebody who's under the bridge downtown, and we'll call him.
Okay.
I'm-
I don't need to hear any more about that one.
like, we just like,
We digress, I'm sorry.
Lansing people might love to get a hold of a copy of this.
All right, I want to say another thing, I promise.
Okay. That was my fault.
So, but, yeah, can you go back though? So
Yeah.
this is.
Mhm.
So this, one thing that I think that we should do with this is, and by we, meaning people who would continue to work here and be here. And basically, I'm looking at Leon. So we have to be able to communicate this well to our students. So so this, along with TIP, we've really just made, and is there, you have to be able to fill out the FAFSA, so DACA students would not be eligible for this probably.
Probably not.
Undocumented students, because they would not be filling
Yeah.
out. But anyway, this should be able to get college affordability off the table as an issue for our students. And so then therefore, we shouldn't have, this gets rid of significant barriers. So we should have many more students going to college. So we need to be able to communicate this well to our student body.
I know.
I
probably
think
shouldn't say
this
that.
is definitely a help, but I think the issue of affordability is still on the table. Because $25,000 for a family, which, we just went through this with my daughter, and they thought I could afford $25,000 or $30,000 a year, and that's a lot. It's a lot. So if you give me $5,000 towards it, that's great, but it's still a lot.
What I'm wondering is, if you do freshman and sophomore years at community college where they have that,
The Promise Zone.
yeah. with
Promise or
us.
Reconnect or
Yeah.
some other programs.
So
yeah.
could that $25,000 be put into their junior year?
So,
Well, we got careful that $25,000 is
yeah.
not what this is giving away.
Right, so it's for it's $5,500. But yeah, I think it definitely helps us get closer to
Yeah.
being affordable.
Right, for certainly TIP eligible students.
Yeah, for
and-
sure.
And
And
already
Pell.
Pell eligible. So when we have, a huge percentage of our students are both full Pell eligible and TIP eligible. They should be able to, this should get rid of other financial
Most.
impediments. Yeah, especially with the Promise Zone too. So we
Becomes
should.
kind of a last mile.
Right, we should be able to communicate to our students that finances,
But I
shouldn't be
will-
an issue.
And how to participate in the process to get
Right,
the dollar.
exactly.
Yeah, the process is, and we were talking about this, with my financial aid folks at work. And so, good news about this though, it's actually a first and last dollar sort of thing where it's going to be applied automatically even before the other aid. But then when the other aid is applied, if there's anything still remaining that they're eligible for, then they'll put that on there as well. So, a lot of times this is last dollar stuff, but the way I understand it, this is a bit unique where everyone's gonna get it if they're eligible, regardless of their other aid package. This is the way it was explained to me at least, but yeah, so. Which is
This
good
will
news.
only become eligible for students that are graduating beginning this year.
Yes.
Next
So,
year. Well, this year's seniors.
This year's senior.
Yep.
Yeah.
The good news is, month over month, revenue continues to come in at a pretty good clip. I mean, if you think about the two things that are happening within our general economy, you got a competitive labor market, which means wages in general are on the rise. The state is collecting a chunk of, obviously, income taxes with that. When families are making more, traditionally they're spending more, especially with goods and inflation being a little bit higher. So all that has yielded additional dollars that the state did not expect, and they already expected to have a larger increase over what we had for last budget year. So while there still are things out there with the economy that we're keeping an eye on, while the purchasing power of a school district, right, things are costing more even though the district's getting more money, is still a concern. We're still in a decent place to where we're not concerned about being able to have a healthy budget into the next budget year. So the other factor that contributes to that is we have $6 billion on the balance sheet between federal funds and state funds that can be used for investments, and that is the largest sum of rainy day funds our state has ever had to be able to access and utilize. All right, just quickly, Educator Workforce Report. To this group, I've shared some information that MDE puts out each and every year. To me, it's one of the most robust looks at where are we at with our workforce. There's a link to that report that you'll be able to access, but here are a few things that I think are worthwhile of bringing to your attention. First and foremost, nearly or just over 146,000 people in the state of Michigan with a valid teaching certificate. 84,000 of them are employed in a teaching position in one of our classrooms. Just north of 60,000 are not employed in a teaching position. So those are individuals who perhaps are an administrator right now, a building principal, or an individual who said, hey, I'm taking my talents elsewhere outside of this profession. So whenever we talk about workforce, we always talk about the retention aspect as well of here are people who made a decision to have this as their career. They became certified, and yet they're not within a classroom setting at this point. So that's always something we want to keep top of mind whenever we're looking at our educator workforce information.
Do we have the means to break it down to find out of that 61 who is like an administrator or still in the education system and who is like totally not engaged, they have another career path now?
Yeah, I think we can. The tables in the appendix would probably give us a more detailed breakdown. Mm-hmm. What I can say in general is roughly 7% of the educator workforce is administration. So if you take, that percent of that number, it'll give you an idea how many then are on the outside of our school walls, perhaps doing something else. The good news is, for the first time in nearly 2 decades, we are actually seeing enrollment growth within our colleges of education. Now this gets to the 2019-20 data. It's the latest data that's available. But for years, I've been saying, hey, when is the bottom going to get here? And this is promising that perhaps we are seeing a little bit of rebound in enrollment in those teacher prep programs. And this does not take into consideration the significant investment that was made at the state to try to offset the costs for our future educators. And so I'm hopeful this isn't a blip in the radar, that next year we'll see that trend grow. And then with some continued sustained efforts, we'll see even more progress, because Michigan was a national leader in decline from 2006 to 2019, 70% decline in our teacher prep programs. One of the things as a state we need to be intentional at looking at is beyond providing direct support for individuals to go into the profession, is how do we perhaps further incentivize those areas where we know there's a higher shortage, whether that be special education, science and maths at the high school level, and some other areas. We still have individuals going in our teacher prep programs, and the vast majority of those individuals are in that elementary or language arts area. So as a state, when we require licensure in certain areas, for an educator to be able to be front and center in a classroom, we then have to say, okay, do we have enough individuals to where they can fill those needs, or are we chasing temporary permits, hoping for state approval as stopgap measures? I think there's some ways we can be strategic to help address this gap even more so than we are today. Last slide I want to share with you, statewide teacher retention. One of the things that a lot of us were nervous about is to say, hey, when the pandemic hit and we asked our educators to do heroic work to transition to Zoom classrooms, would some of them say, hey, this isn't for me anymore? I've had my run. The good news is, although this data is a little bit early because it only goes through 2020-21 school year, we had the same percentage roughly of a leave rate. 7.7% of our workforce each and every year either leaves and or retires. And then you have an additional 3.5% that move from district to district. So that's encouraging news that it wasn't a spike. I'm curious to see what next year's numbers hold, to see if there's a larger fluctuation than what we're seeing with these numbers before us. So that's what I have. If you have any questions, if not, I get to go pick up children.
Oh, funny.
Good way to get you not to ask me a question.
For me, I do, but Leon, is it safe to say this House Bill 5703, you'll, make sure that we're compliant with this come January?
Yes, we certainly will.
So, and where does it have to be posted?
Sounds like in all the offices,
And where school board meets.
but it doesn't have to be in the individual school offices too?
Yeah.
And where the school board is.
Individual school offices, as well as school buildings. Says school board meeting location, offices of the school district. Yeah. Also, division laws would be included in manuals and other training materials as well.
School board meeting location and offices of the school district.
Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know if they, is that?
Not
District
every
offices?
school, yeah.
Yeah, we
Also
just
just
meaning
here.
in the district offices, I'm assuming then, not necessarily
Just
the
here.
school-based office.
I'll send the analysis over to you, Leanne.
Okay.
Thank you, Chris. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
Have a great evening.
Thanks, Chris.
Nice evening.
You as well. See you tomorrow, bud.
All right, who will be reviewing the educator workforce trends?
Actually, one more item on number one. I handed out on your desk
yes.
the Let My Kids Learn. We talked about that at the last meeting. This is one of the more concerning pieces of legislation that we will likely need to take a position on as a school board. So this breaks that down, and Chris put this together. Excuse me. Rusty put this together. I'm new, for us to review, but this is something that will likely need to go before the full board. Do you want to walk through the?
So what I tried to do was just give some background on what the proposal is, sort of where it is, what the options were, and then as objectively as I could, some pro and con arguments as you guys sort of look through this. There's a question of whether or not under your current board policy or committee policy for the positions, your issues, whether you could just take a position on it or how much you want to, do you want to have it to go before the board to have an official position? And the reality is this is coming to the legislature at some point, probably in lame duck, to approve, for a push for approval, to not have to have the governor's signature. So we put this together and wanted to get it to you. There's time to do it at the next legislative committee meeting and board meeting, but we wanted to make sure that you had it in order to be able to take a look at it. So, and again, tried to be as objective as I could. I learned some things when I sort of researched this. I thought it was a deduction. It's a credit. So you can put essentially your entire tax liability, you can donate that to an institution, not an institution, to a nonprofit that would then be able to grant scholarships and other.
Would the nonprofit be the school, or it could be,
It could be.
like we have the foundation?
Yeah,
it could be-
exactly. So as I dug into this, it could be where GRPS through its foundation says to all of its parents, you can all donate your tax liability. Essentially.
That's great.
To-
So I could decide, instead of paying my Michigan taxes, I'm gonna give it all to Grand Rapids Public Schools.
That's really sketchy.
Now, it's
Fine if I don't need roads to get to Grand Rapids.
Right.
now, and again, I tried to, it's
up
capped
to
at 500,
500
it's
million.
capped at 500 million.
So Tony, you'd still have a little bit to pay to the state.
Only if I'm late.
If I
early, I could get it all to-
So that was sort of new to me as I sort of looked into it. But again, we wanted to make sure that you had all the information.
Any other legislation, because this means that we can always choose to divert our tax dollars to what we want it to pay for, rather than what it's.
Yes, that's a precedence for that.
I mean, I know anybody could do this, but if it's largely the families and people that we serve, it requires that, they need to be paying taxes every year, where a lot of our families would be getting credits. It also requires that you need to have an accountant or a CPA, that you need to know how to do these things. So it sounds great, but it benefits a lot of other districts.
Well, I get that.
I
No,
mean-
but I'm saying is, my issue is could then anyone that
Right,
has who does owe taxes and has an accountant can divert their tax dollars to where they'd like it to go. Is there any
can't-
other
You
entity
can't
that?
dictate, you can only dictate that it goes to the 501c4. Sorry, thank you. You can only dictate to the 501c4 that it goes to. You can't dictate, and it has to be approved by Treasury, that 501c4 has to be an approved entity. You then cannot say, I'm putting my money here because I want it to go here. You can't direct how the foundation would then spend those dollars.
So,
Right, I
and
get
when
that,
it
I get that,
says,
but what this is setting up is a situation where taxpayers could choose, instead of whatever the state of Michigan has decided they're gonna pay for
Yes.
with tax dollars towards.
and is that a new precedent? Where else do we see something like this
That's,
happening?
that's what my question.
There are other states that have similar programs. Indiana is one. There are a couple of others who have programs where you can get a credit or a deduction on your taxes for contributions to an educational foundation. It's not,
Do we see it outside of education?
well, and obviously any charitable giving, you get a deduction on your taxes,
Right, but it's not a,
but it's not a credit.
right.
Right. There are other tax credits for sure. I don't know the answer to the question. My assumption is there are probably some.
But not that you can take like, and maybe I'm not understanding this, but like literally if I owe, whatever I owe up to 500
So you owe
million,
20,
so totally
yeah, so if
your
you owe
whole-
$2,500 in taxes, you could donate $2,500 to a 501c3
Right.
approved by Treasury. And then you would say to the state of Michigan, I get a credit because I donated this amount, and it wipes out your tax liability.
So that would be a part of this bill?
Yes.
So even though that's really nice, the other stuff doesn't look so good.
Yeah, and the nomenclature is important because it's an initiative now, not, the bills were vetoed. So there's no
Right.
bills. It's an initiative that got the signatures in order to be on the ballot. They're certifying or actively
they
looking at
haven't
those.
been
They've
completely
not been
certified
certified
yet.
yet.
Okay.
They've not been certified.
So the legislature is not going to vote on this, it's going to
Well-
be on, believe,
They if it's certified,
Right, it has to be certified.
and the timing is such that it's certified, let's say nothing changes in the election. There's still split government the way that it is now. It could be certified in January and they could consider it in January. If the balance of power shifts, then there is a timing issue of when the Secretary of State would certify them and their ability to be on, to get it to the legislature in time.
so then the legislature passes it to put it on the ballot?
No.
No.
So the legislature has three options
Okay.
when an initiative is placed in front of them.
I read
They
that, but it
can-
makes sense to me, thank
Yep,
you.
yep. So they have three options. They can approve it with a simple majority vote in both chambers, does not need to go to the governor, it's then law. Think of the one fair wage proposal that put in the minimum wage and sick time leave and all that. That was adopted by the legislature and became law, and then they changed it. There's a whole nother lawsuit on that. But, so they can do that. They can reject it, whole cloth, then that goes to the ballot for the people to decide. The third option is they can offer an alternative, then both of those would go to the ballot, and the one that gets the most votes would be adopted.
Now I have one more question. So say this happens and you can, use the credit to go to one of those 501c3 entities. What are the stipulations on how I see, it can include tutoring supplies or tuition, but are there stipulations on who receives those? Like, is there a need-based?
Much of it is opaque, and there would have to be guidance adopted either by MDE, Conceivably, you can amend a citizen-initiated law. You can amend it, the legislature and the governor can amend it later, but that one would have to be signed by the governor.
Okay.
Yeah, but the only thing I guess somewhat is clear based on this is that any dollars given to a family or students towards their education will be capped at 90% of the school aid foundation allowance.
Yep. Yep,
Per student, obviously.
yep.
Is that the updated one with the new per pupil?
Yes, that is the new, yep, that is the new per pupil amount, yep. And it adapts as the per pupil goes up. It's always 90%, yeah.
And
So-
then a private school would be able to say, if you donate yours to us, we will give you a scholarship
Possibly.
for them.
Presumably, I'm sure there would be,
Yeah.
there will be lots of court challenges to this one. And so, but presumably, there would be the ability to be able to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, that was sort of the ultimate goal, I think.
I don't know what they do in the Christian schools, but I do know in the Catholic schools, many people just take that tuition off on their taxes, you know, even though I don't believe that that's a tax deduction, but if so many people do it, I guess they don't get away with it. They consider it a contribution to the church, and then it's tax deductible, but really,
Oh, it's a charitable contribution, not an educational expense. Got it. Makes sense.
that's a way around the cost, you know.
Even though, but again, that's a deduction, which gets you essentially 4%, 4.2%, as opposed to a
A credit.
credit,
a
which
big
is the
difference. Yeah,
entire
yeah,
amount. Yep.
For sure.
I mean, it's an important distinction,
Yeah.
Okay.
but something to look at and consider.
So, Leon, what are your thoughts on when we should take a stance or bring this to full board? I know I mentioned it to them before, but what are your thoughts?
I guess it depends on if we feel that we need to take it to the full board, or if we feel that our, kind of guidance, because, our guiding principles give us enough authority to make our own decision without taking it to the full board, but
So, when you say take a stance, are you looking at adding it to the legislative platform, or are you, because I think that would probably guide how we,
What is taking a stance look?
taking a specific stance on this proposed situation.
Yeah, it would be a direction to us
All right.
to advocate for or against the proposal, and that could take the form of a letter from the district to legislators with some lobbying attached to that. There's a number of different ways that you could try to do something. It could be passing a resolution from the board, urging the we can sort of explore all of those options.
Right.
It basically gives us the freedom to be able to say, all right, here's where we are, here's what we think you should do.
Yeah.
Are you saying that we currently could see our guiding principles as giving you the authority to say Grand Rapids Public School Board of Education would be opposed to this
Right.
without us doing anything else?
Yep.
right?
I think the short of it is, how big of a deal do we,
Yeah.
meaning you all, want to make of
That's a good
it?
way to put it.
I think it can be a little bit of both. I think that we can create the letter and say where we stand, and then just share the letter with the full board so that they know. And I think it also would be good to add this to the legislative platform piece that we'll have on Capitol Day, because this will still be in discussion. Sounds like perhaps if it's certified.
Maybe, yeah. A lot of stuff.
So
is
we
up
can
in the
see
air.
where that lies at that time. But it may be a good discussion piece to have some data around to share with legislators. And I know that Rusty will be having that ongoing conversation as well.
But you thought that we should do something before the holiday.
So the question becomes, at your November board meeting, let's say it this way, if you decide you want to do something more formal at the board, you should do it by that November one, so you're prepared if it comes before the legislature.
I agree. I'm thinking like both and, like as soon as you'd like to have a letter put together. Is there anyone here who is so the conversation we're having so far is that this is not something that would benefit GRPS based on the guiding principles. Is there anyone who has differing thoughts on that?
Well, my thought is that my thought is what's going to be effective at keeping this from being passed. Is it effective to just go with, this goes against what GRPS generally always stands against, so then therefore we're opposing it. And so if anything beyond that is going to help keep it from being passed or hurt or make it worse or make it more difficult to, you know what I'm saying, in terms of, in other words, if us taking a stand creates more public pressure
Right,
to
right.
increase it, then I'd like to just stay out of it. So what I want to know is, what do you suggest we do to keep this from becoming law?
That's a tough one.
Which is what you,
Well, and maybe
rather
before-
than what
I
we
get-
want to do, because I don't want to just have symbolic questions
Yeah.
all the time coming
Yeah,
for
yeah,
us.
sure.
We want to keep this, we want to do what's in the best interest of the district.
Yeah, I get you, Tony. Do we maybe inadvertently draw more attention to it by taking the stand?
Yeah.
I don't know, but yeah, I get you.
Well, and then I think, because this will be conversation, and it will be in front of legislators, so maybe it's like, if in fact you all are like, yeah, maybe we shouldn't take this bold public stance, maybe we should still have a letter and some information that could be
Yeah.
shared.
Yeah, I not to cut you off, but I was just thinking, though, I think, that probably is what it is, because it's not like this is an election piece, so the public, there's no really public-facing element to it.
At
It
this
is really
point,
just a
right.
matter of, what we want to say to legislatures. And in that regard, there probably is no such thing as drawing too much attention to it, unless it was a public-facing thing.
And if we can include is it possible to know, maybe not, but I know sometimes I see data around like families, the percentage of families that qualify for like EITC or things like that. Is it possible for us to know what percentage of our families may qualify for certain credits or things where we know they're getting a refund and not paying?
The question is what percentage of the population has an income tax liability
Right,
to the state?
in our,
Is that sort of enough?
is it able to hone it down to
Probably not
Our-
the district.
our
Probably the
city, our
though. Yeah,
district.
Probably the
So we
city.
can we know those that
Well, free
qualify
and
for free and
reduced
reduced
lunch,
lunch, and if that's at 80%, then that kind of answers the question right there. That means that they're below, 165%, 185% of the
Right,
poverty
of the-
level, which means that they're probably eligible for EITC.
It's probably enough for Leon and I just to be able to go to legislators and say, the board's opposed to this.
Yeah.
I
I mean,
this is a bad idea.
to me, it seems like the big issue is, and I think that you referenced this before, is whether or not this provides an opportunity to change the Constitution to allow funding for private schools. And that's,
It's a much larger discussion.
so, and also it seems like we should expect, the state legislature votes on what to spend the money on, for the state of Michigan. It seems like they should be the ones deciding what to spend the money on, not whether or not I want to give my money to, a school foundation, but. And that's problematic at other levels, so.
right.
So anyway, it seems like at this point,
Yeah. My issue when we were sort of talking about this is just if we go out and have these conversations with legislators, we wanted to make sure that the legislative committee and the board were aware and comfortable with the fact that we're utilizing our guiding principles to take a position on this and move forward. There's sort of protection for everybody, and that
Yeah.
we've filtered this through
Yeah.
our
So,
principles.
yeah, for sure. I think it's definitely fair to say that the board would be in opposition to this, and I guess it sounds like you're looking for formal approval to be able to say that.
you're not asking for a formal approval. You're asking for
Right. we're
authority
just-
within our current guiding principles.
Right, yes.
Yeah.
That's a better
Yeah.
way to ask the
Okay.
question.
And asking whether if we want to do something bigger than this. Which I
So
feel
it
like that would
sounds like-
largely depend on whether we think this has a real
When
chance,
the
right?
timing, yeah, it's all.
So-
Whether it's certified or not, yeah.
Exactly.
But I
Ifs
do,
and buts where,
Yeah.
candy nuts would be Christmas all year.
I do think it would be a good idea to
It might
get
be
this.
Christmas when this gets passed.
I do think it'd be a good idea to get this in front of the board members. So if we do decide, oh, this is really picking up steam, then we can come to them and say, you know that thing we already know about,
Yeah.
right?
I think that's fair, yeah.
Yeah. So, but it sounds like for now, we can do a letter. And the reason why I was kind of bringing up, it seems like in most of the conversations that include legislators, they're always asking, well, how does this affect you? Like, give us some data points, give us some examples. That seems to be helpful. But if we can put together a piece that shows like where we stand as a district and also why, a few reasons of like why, how it could impact us or not, benefit us.
I can look at some data, and I think the question becomes what level of income tax liability are there in a city in a district like ours?
And I think the other points as well are just concerns that we have, like the direct concerns and the larger concerns, the precedent that it sets. So like you said, we can share it with the board, but we don't have to we don't have to make this a larger issue for now. We'll see if the certifications happen.
That makes sense to me.
The educator and workforce trends, Chris did go through.
Okay.
So that was part of that, so,
Yes.
just I know you'd ask that question.
Yes, okay.
So does that bring us to the future structure of meetings? You had some,
Yeah, I just,
We did election overview as well?
oh, I missed
Sorry.
that.
things are tightening up. That's my election update. Things
All
are
right.
getting closer, people are starting to pay more attention. Caucuses are making decisions in both chambers and both parties about which races they're abandoning and which ones they're gonna stay in or going into new ones. The gubernatorial race is going to tighten up with a large expenditure on behalf of candidate Dixon. You're gonna see a closer race over the next 3 weeks, and things will tighten up and further prove that Michigan is purple. That's,
Did y'all get a chance to watch the debate? If you didn't, there's a lot of talk of public education in there.
and some zingers.
Definitely. It's good. It was entertaining television. It was not boring.
Moderator was,
Don't.
I sent him a text.
I did too.
All right, and future structure of meetings?
Yeah, I just, this is something that, as you guys think about this, for your future colleagues, not colleagues, but for the future board members, do we want to have any conversation about the structure of these? Do we want to have some speakers come in? Just sort of, I've just been thinking about how we, are there things that, as existing board members, you would like to see more of that we can make sure we carry on for the next group that's in? So that was really just more of a question. So something to think about.
So we'll have, what, 1 or 2 more meetings with this board, with this committee? I guess November,
Of 2
December.
more, and we've also had before where it may be in every other month or like this board, this committee has like a different cadence than some of the other committees. So I think that's open for conversation. But I do think that there are probably some other educational pieces that we can bring in that further prepare people for when we're having conversation with legislators or the work that can be done throughout the year.
I wonder if, considering that there will be new board members, for sure, and I don't want to, minimum of 2 to 3 new board members, it might be nice to think about what is going to be, because it's kind of tough to decide what should this committee do, because it's not like finance committee, which we know exactly what we're going to do every month. We're gonna pass the purchasing order and decide whether or not to hire people. But when is this important to me? So school aid budget, whatever. So, and it seems like it might be good for, I keep putting the work back on you guys. For you guys, is what should you advise the new board? Because there could be a lot of different people sitting up here in January. And then what would they want? And I think that my sense is that the candidates that will be new will want change, and they want the system to change for the better. And so how do we kind of prepare them to do that work effectively? And so that would determine what the structure of this meeting should look like.
Yeah, and really as I sort of thought about this, we have lots of great experience here. You know, are there suggestions that you could make to future board members saying, hey, as you're thinking about change? That was more of just a discussion point. For example, the district has middle cities, it has the School Boards Association, it has the School Administrators Association. There are a number of sort of different groups that the district is a part of. And is it helpful to maybe have them come in once a year to the legislative committee? I'm just sort of thinking about how that we just make sure there's a wide variety of input into how you guys make those decisions and what happens in the district that could be helpful. You know, Ms.
Yeah.
Lewis has served on the school boards, and that brought a different level of knowledge based on the things that are discussed there that come back here, right? There's value to that. So that was really more just what can we do to make this the most impactful that it can be.
I guess to some extent, what I'm saying is that it might be good for, maybe Ms. Lewis can help, to tell the new board what an effective legislative committee can do. Rather than, because I think that we could have a situation where the legislative committee becomes a voice for other issues than the schools too. But it might be nice to know that, well, we have these other associations that lobby on our behalf as well. Here's the reason we have this association. We do this as well as have these other associations. We have, you know, your firm doing this, and this is the benefit of it. And these are the kinds of work that's being done around school board legislative committees.
Yeah. My guess is next year that we're going to have more conversations about legislation or proposals like the ones that we just put before you, not less.
Might even have legislative as well, so.
Maybe.
But, yeah, I guess
Come
guess
back
the
for
other
guest
thing is,
appearances.
so, my thing is that we should do it early, because the first legislative committee, you know, what should it look like? What should it do? You know, I think that so anyway, this is just I think it's been different things over the years that, and I'm saying this more as somebody that's been on here for so long and leaving, but I think it's become something that's really effective, so.
In place of, or not, in addition to this meeting, you are suggesting perhaps that we have speakers maybe every other month or so, people that we have agreements with outside the city, or?
Yeah, I mean, we've never had a legislator that represents the district come in and come to the legislative committee and talk about what they're working on. I mean, there are all kinds of, I think, things you could do to not get away from the mission of what they're trying to do, but enhance the information with which you're trying to do those things, I guess is how I would say it.
Yeah.
Is that,
Yeah.
again,
Yeah.
I just thought it'd be a good thought process to sort of just chat about, and we always want to do it better, right?
Right.
And now that Helmholtz gone, you know, we got
Plenty of room. There's right?
bar, you know,
We're not stuck by that path.
trip over the bar on the way out the door, you know.
Now, am I still on some sort of a to-do list that I have to come up with something for the new members, or can I just let that?
No, he was just saying you could be helpful as.
Helpful,
as
okay.
one of
Helpful,
many
not,
others, yes.
not meet with them and say, this
Shots
is what
fired.
you.
So Leon, you gonna get this to the other 5 board members?
Yes.
Electronically printed, or what are you planning? to do?
Yes, I'll send it to all of you electronically.
Okay. All right.
All right.
And then I guess with that, wrapping that up, You're gonna send that to us. You're not waiting on anything back from us though, as far as your conversations regarding this. We just wanna,
And we'll keep Leon informed of the certification or what's going on so that he can keep you informed. We'll do our best to communicate.
So the ask is that we go ahead with a letter now, or just prepare that in case.
Well, could it be a part of our board docs or something, or a meeting?
no, I think, oh, wow. I mean, if Rusty thinks he needs a letter to operate within the realm that you were looking to, I think we can do that, but I didn't get the sense that you thought that was necessary. You just more so wanted the ability to operate within the guiding principles and to convey that we see this as something within those principles, so then you can move forward with conversations.
Yeah, I mean, Leon and I can talk, I'll follow Leon's lead and sort of how we do that, but, you know, we're all learning together.
Well, I would say we're probably willing to do whatever you think is best, but I think clearly it's not something that's great for public education, so I think you can comfortably convey
Yeah.
that for sure, that we are.
I think starting off low-key is good, and then we'll revisit it if we think
Ramp up if we
this is, we need to do the press conference out on the steps.
So, before we send the letter to the board, are you gonna, do you plan on just sending what you gave to us?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay, all right.
With a message saying that currently our guiding principles.
Right.
Show closed, but we might come back to you.
Yes, just so that,
We may come back with a more formal request.
Yeah. So,
How's that?
All right.
All right.
All righty. And-
All right, no other business?
when is our next meeting?
all right.
What date, what is it, this is Monday? So,
Yeah, I'll
is
have
it the
to,
first Monday?
I'll look at no, it's not the first one, but I can look on the calendar and get it for you. All right, meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.